Ladies and gentlemen, the program is about to begin. As a courtesy to your fellow attendants, please silence your mobile phone for the duration of the program. For those who are needing translation, please pick up a headset from the tables located near the doors. Channel information will appear on the screen. Thank you.
Very good. Well, thank you all for joining this session after lunch. I know it's a tough one after lunch. And this is the session on green growth. So I just want to make sure you're at the right place. My name is Jeremy Oppenheim, and I head up the Global Commission on the Economy and Climate, which Andrew Steer, who I think is with us today, described in one of the plenary sessions. And the purpose of the Global Commission is to examine with rigor the relationship, if you will, between how our economy performs overall and how we take effective action on climate. And for those people who are not in rooms like this, in many parts of the world, there is a view that taking action on climate and having the kind of economy that we want are somehow in conflict with each other. But the purpose of the Global Commission is to try and understand how, in fact, those two agendas reinforce each other and come together. And right at the heart of that, right at the heart, is the role of cities. Because if we're going to find a place where doing the right thing in terms of economic performance and doing the right thing in terms of climate action really are mutually reinforcing, it is in the cities where green growth thrives in a whole range of different ways, from the way in which you would build the operating system of a city and drive down the resource and energy costs of running that city, through to the opportunities to generate innovative new jobs and new clusters of economic activity, and then through just to the sheer livability of cities. And we're looking to understand all of that as the Global Commission. We're looking to work closely with all of you at the C40 in that work. Let me just put a few statistics up, the ones that you may know, but there are the C40 itself has looked at some data, and I don't know if you have those numbers, and that they're worth just reflecting on. I mean, just in the kind of straw poll that was conducted to get a feel for what's going on with all of you and the initiatives and the leadership that you're all offering, there are a whole set of cities, over 20 cities that have Cleantech clusters. There are a range of cities that have developed, if you will, particular strategies and approaches to green manufacturing. Many cities have begun to wrestle with the questions of financing. And in general, this question of and the opportunity of driving the, if you will, the green economy agenda and using that as a way of catalyzing the wider goals that you hold as cities is something that has become, I think, pervasive and at the very heart of what the C40 is about. When we just take one step up from the, if you will, the data that you've been capturing as C40 and look at this, if you will, from the global lens, what's striking, and this exhibit has on the vertical axis the CO2 intensity, if you will, of cities, and on the horizontal axis it has per capita income, and we've got a mix of countries and cities, and there are just a couple of things I would observe. I mean, you can see very sharp differences in performance in terms of carbon emissions, even at the same levels of income. So you compare, and this is maybe an unfair comparison in some sense, but you can compare the city of Paris, right, to the city of Sydney, and even though Paris has higher per capita income, it's got much lower emissions intensity, and there are many examples of that. And I think, and I'm sure we'll hear from Karoline and the Copenhagen team, the story not just of, if you will, a comparison between two very different cities, but the wonderful story of Copenhagen is of a city, as I understand it, that's continued to grow its economic base at the same time as dramatically cutting its carbon emissions, and so that even within a, if you were, given city framework, you can show tremendous change and progress. So we're going to be looking for not just kind of analytics, but the stories that sit behind the analysis. And what I'd like to do, and I'm going to not take any more time of the group right now, but what I'd like to do is invite the first speaker up, who is Josh Alpert of the City of Portland, to come and share with us your journey, how you're tackling the green growth topic, and I want you to. I know you're going to be walking through some exhibits and the like, but at the same time as telling us the good news, right? Can I encourage you, Josh, to share with us some of the real battles that you've had to fight? Because my guess is that it hasn't been plain sailing all of the way. So if you can bring both to life, the successes and some of the battles, I think we as a community will do even more learning on the back of your experience. So Josh, with that, let me hand the podium over to you.
Thank you, Tim. Good afternoon. Keeping Portland weird is as easy as 1, 2, 3. Early policy adoption, creating a green economy, and measuring that green economy. Admittedly, 3 things that you probably won't ever see on the television show Portlandia, if any of you have ever seen it, though that's about the only real difference between the satire and our living reality in Portland. We are a weird city. We have a well-earned reputation for being an experimental city, buying into the ethic of early adoption. I think a threshold question, though, is why? And there are, of course, many answers to that. And yes, being a weird city is one of them. But a better answer, actually, is that we have a history in Portland of visionary leaders who knew that one day cities would, in fact, take over the world. And if not, at least the policies that they created would help to shape it. Maybe we really are just weird. I don't know. Some of these policies that have been put into place over time include our land use system, which was a very experimental land use system that built an urban growth boundary around the metropolitan region, forcing urban density and preserving farmland. We also have a very aggressive transit system, starting in the 70s with a fairly radical revolution by citizens who rose up against the state and federal government to shut down the building of a new freeway in downtown Portland, and instead convinced the federal government to divert that money to go ahead and build our first light rail line. That led eventually to the creation of the first modern streetcar system in the U.S., led by then Commissioner, now Mayor Charlie Hales, which of course then inevitably led to the first modern streetcar manufacturing company in the United States, right in Portland, which is a perfect example of how policy can actually drive the quote-unquote green economy. We have, of course, cycling policies that have pumped $90 million a year into our local economy. And we now have the potential for the creation of about 8,000 new jobs over the next several years, resulting from our burgeoning new electric vehicle policies. We have policies, of course, on energy efficiency. We created a few years ago a public-private partnership called Clean Energy Works that focuses on bundling the cost of residential retrofits, making it affordable for every resident in Portland to go ahead and have an energy-efficient home. By 2025, we're hoping to have more than 25% of our energy come from renewable resources, and we're well on our way to that. Of course, we also have pretty advanced climate change policies, and in fact, in 1993, we became the first U.S. local city to pass a greenhouse gas reduction plan, which now we call our climate action plan, and is we're about to unveil our newest update to that plan. In 2011, we did some measurement and realized that emissions fell as a result of these plans, and implementing those plans fell by about 8% below our 1990 levels, despite rapid population growth and economic growth. So policies actually do work. We have policies involving our green infrastructure. We have a Great Green program that was a 5-year program of really intensive efforts to make sure that we weren't just building pipes, but actually using our natural resources for stormwater. One example is I'm going to take a second and show what this map is. It was a program called Tabor to the River, which took 1,500 acres of largely single-family residence homes, and all of which were susceptible to some significant basement flooding. If you don't know, Portland is a fairly rainy city, at least during the winter months. And instead of spending a projected $144 million to go ahead and build a separated stormwater system, we recalculated and instead spent $80 million to build 600 sustainable stormwater facilities. 3,500 new trees were planted, a massive revegetation project underway, all of which led to a ton of community education on the benefits of green infrastructure, and not just the benefit to each individual homeowner, but the economic benefits as well to the city. We, of course, also have policies on waste reduction, resulting in enough energy that now can power 20,000 houses. And we just started about 2 years ago a home composting program, where now every home in the city has a bin on their kitchen counter, and folks, despite immediate fears that it would be relatively disgusting, have gotten pretty used to it. In the summer, it's a little disgusting still. And finally, we have policies that result in the fabric of our visual and visceral experience, like our green building policy, which was adopted in 2000. Now, on any city property, any new building that gets built must be built to a LEED Gold or above standard, and any retrofit must be retrofitted to a LEED Silver or above standard. We also have a LEED requirement for any public-private partnership over 10,000 square feet. That's all resulted in having more LEED Platinum buildings than anywhere else, and we're second in the nation for the number of LEED buildings per capita. We also have a burgeoning eco-district system. Many of you know my colleague Rob Bennett. Rob was instrumental in creating eco-districts, and now we have 5 in Portland and are looking to expand, hopefully to our 6th and maybe 7th. So what? Other than testing crazy-sounding experiments on a semi-unwitting populace, who really cares? Portland has a reputation for talking quite a bit about itself and the work that we've done, and like I said, most of it's well-earned. But we're all now doing really great policy work, and we're sharing those ideas, and we need to keep doing that, and there's more to be done. But really, the magic comes in having to sell these policies to said semi-unwitting populations. That means making the economic case for each one. Behind each of these policies is an economic infrastructure. Jeremy asked to share the good with the bad, and for us, really, that is the bad. And even in a city like Portland that's very used to these kind of crazy policy ideas, we still have to really work double time to explain them to the community so that we can get buy-in. We live, of course, in a political world. So how do we do that? Well, first, we do it by creating the policies and the incentives, which we've done. And then we crunch the numbers. And it's actually relatively easy to show the business growth and job creation from each of these policies. As I had mentioned about the streetcar system, building the first modern streetcar system in the country led fairly quickly to the first modern streetcar manufacturing plant in the city, which of course created hundreds of jobs in Portland. Retrofitting houses for energy efficiency creates jobs because people have to now go in and do that work. Even home composting has created jobs because someone had to create the bins that go on everyone's counter. Those things are tangible, and people can actually start to understand those and how that affects our local economy, which then, of course, is relatively easy for people to understand how that affects them personally. So once we do that, Then second, by then, we use those numbers of our local economic success to really enter into the global market. In Portland, we have a couple of tools that we use to do that. A tool like First Stop Portland, run by Nancy Hales, yes, our mayor's mayor, as I like to think of her, which is housed at Portland State University. And Nancy and her team connect international delegations that come to Portland with local businesses and academic leaders who can actually tell these stories of our economic success firsthand because they're part of it. We then are able to use our new marketing initiative called We Build Green Cities to matchmake those international delegations to the businesses that are looking to export either services or goods. Exciting, right? Seems relatively easy, but, there's always a but, we're not there yet. And here's really where we get into the challenge. What's missing from all of this is cohesion. By that I mean a shared language. When I was putting this presentation together, I asked a whole bunch of friends what they thought I meant when I said green job or green economy, and as you would expect, I got a different answer from every person that I asked. And if we're having that trouble in Portland, then you can imagine having that conversation with someone from Changwon or Beijing or anywhere else in the world, because we all talk about these things differently. And without a shared language, we can't really share measurement. And if we can't share measurements of the economic impacts of the policies that we're creating, then it becomes really challenging to build an actual global economy. However, it's an opportunity. And this opportunity has led London and Portland to create a pilot project. Great. I see it. I'll go quickly. This pilot has the ability to really take C40 to the next level. Moving from just sharing policy ideas, which we have to continue to do, but really towards sharing economies. In this way, C40 cities will be at the forefront of building a new global economy. This pilot will result in a shared methodology that quantifies each city's low carbon and environmental sectors. This will lead, hopefully, to identifying each city's strengths and weaknesses, further leading to the creation of a green index that assesses any city's economy in relation to their policy portfolio. In the near future, as an example, and I'll wrap up, a city like Portland will be able to assess our strengths in, say, the wind turbine manufacturing sector. We'll be able to assess the best city to partner with up and downstream in the supply and value chains based on their own rankings in the Green Index, and then create a trade partnership boosting each city's economy. Friends, the C40 Green Growth Network is perfectly situated to facilitate this pilot and help create the new 21st century economy, moving from a global green economy to simply the global economy. Thank you.
I'm sorry for cutting you off, but we will come back to the question of measurement, how we get the economic analysis right, because that will be at the heart of taking this from one-off stories to scale. So we will come back to that, I promise you. Let me now ask Adugna, Mekonnen, Beyene to come up and share with us the story of where Addis, Ababa, is going. A very presumably different starting point and a different story, and with that, let me welcome you to the stage.
Thank you very much. I'm happy to share my experience of this green economy of city Addis Ababa. Just to introduce Addis Ababa. Yeah. Addis Ababa is the capital of Ethiopia, as you know, and is the seat of African Union. It has around 3 million population. It's area around 504 kilometers square, and we have 10 sub-city and 116 local administration, which called district, and it's Addis Ababa is, I think, it is located in the very high altitude from 2,300 to 3,000, and is annual rainfall is around 1,200. So since it's located in the highland, Addis Ababa is getting bimodal rainfall, but nowadays with this climate change, is the rain season, and also the intensity is changing. The drive to the green economy in Ethiopia already has a vision to achieve a middle income status by 2025 in a climate resilient green economy. To achieve this plan, there is a growth and transformation plan of 5 years, which is end next year. To achieve this huge plan, it is difficult to perform as business as usual, because when you implement this as business as usual, the emission from 150 to reach 400 metric ton carbon dioxide equivalent. So this can put a pressure on the economy of a country as a whole and the city in particular. So a federal government is already planned a green economy strategy which has 4 pillars. This is the 4 pillars of the green economy. One is adaptation of agriculture and the land use efficiency measures. It's generally word. Pillar 2, increase greenhouse gas sequestration in forestry. Pillar 3, development of renewable and clean power generation. Pillar 4, use appropriate advanced technology in industry and transport and the buildings. Our country, Ethiopia, is agrarian country. More than 85% of carbon emission is come from agriculture. So the major implementation to reduce emission is on this area. So we as a city administration especially work on pillar 1, just increase sequestration in forestry. The master plan of Addis Ababa allocated 41% of the areas for green area, around 22,000 hectares. Now, from this, around 10,000 hectares is already covered with forest. Already we increase this annually. Next year we plan to increase by 200 hectares just to supply this nursery. Also we have nurseries. And also rehabilitation of degraded area because of Addis at a high altitude, and there is a flood problem. So to increase the population of the rain at the upper catchment, to rehabilitate the upper catchment with biological and physical soil conservation measures. So this sector, especially plantation and nursery as a green enterprise, create a job 168. This is not mean it's a big, but the big job opportunity is this is the housing program, which is create around 500,000 jobs in this program. So this is pictorial, the nursery site of the city, just to rehabilitate the degraded area of the upper catchment of the city because unless this area rehabilitated, it is a risk of flood in the lower part of the city. So this is a greening program. Another is there is a new garden developed at the northern part of the city. Because of the climate change in our country, Ethiopia, and in Addis in, in particular, there is a shift, a genetic shift of plants, especially the indigenous one. So to conserve this, there is a Botanic Garden established on 700 hectares of the urban area. This is one to conserve the species is going to extinct because of the climate change, and another is for research, environmental education, and ecotourism. It's already inaugurated last year and already started to serve the community of the city. Another is where the greenhouse gas emission is observed is on the waste, especially waste from domestic. So just as a green project, we start a project which is called Waste to Compost project. This project is run by Addis Ababa City Administration Environmental Protection Authority as a pilot project. Under this project, already we supplied a bin of two colors, green and blue. The decomposable waste is put in the blue one, and the non-decomposable in the green. The decomposable is come to this compost site, and the non-decomposable is already loaded to the dumping site. So this is a pilot project which gives the advantage of one, in decreasing the pollution and the emission from this waste, and the reduction of the transportation cost. This is a double advantage, also create a job and increase the service time of the landfill. Also, landfill is the old landfill which is open and a problem which create emission, methane emission, is currently already is going to close, and the modern one is going to build out of Addis and serve. It's not only Addis, it's the satellite cities around Addis Ababa. So this already is going to close in future. Another project is the Lrt Project. This project is already as a national strategy is put under Pillar 4, and the use of appropriate advanced technology in transport. So this project is started last year. It's a construction, fully construction, and nowadays it's already reached 50% of the physical work is already performed. So from this contributes for the green growth of the city. The public transport, the city uses the minibus and the midibus and the buses. This is frequently affected by traffic congestion, and this is a case for carbon emission because of the inefficiency of use the petroleum on this area. So this Lrt cover around 33.5 kilometers west to north and north to south. So this project, as all of you know, save fuel. We totally import fuel from abroad and save spare parts and the lubricants. So employment impact on this project is around 15,000. A direct job in construction operation and the maintenance is creative. Another project is a new project. It's also started last year, promoting autonomous adaptation at community level in urban component. This has rural component also. This project has a rural component, but the urban component is already implemented in Addis. So the problem of the greening of the cities, one is encroachment from the community. So the community should incorporate it in managing and the use from benefit from this project. So the component is integrating already is integrated project which is compatible with this forest area. So apiculture, this is no negative impact on the forest. So the community, already 2 groups with 15 members is as a pilot is started. We supplied around 1,000 beehives for this project. Also fruit and tree seedling production. Another one is briquette production. This is waste to energy. So after this project is tested here, can be replicated to other areas, not to add even in Addis, but in general in the cities in Ethiopia. This is a pilot for the country. Thank you very much.
So Adugna, thank you, and it is wonderful to hear all the different examples, and I'm sorry to cut you off. And it is also interesting to hear the parallels with Portland. I mean, both of you thinking about green infrastructure in different ways, in different contexts. So lots of cross-pollination. So if I can now ask Tea-hean Rim to come and share with us, I think hopefully a very different angle again, and I would encourage everybody to look at the timer, right?
Yes. 안녕하세요. 반갑습니다. It's my great honor to deliver our city's activity on the green growth. My name is Tea-hean Rim, the Director General of Environmental Forest Bureau of Changwon. Before I begin this presentation, I'd like to thank you, all of you, for giving me the opportunity to address this presentation of TT's effort to make the green economy. Changwon is a city located in southeast region, home Republic of Korea, with a population size of 1.1 million. Changwon serves as the Mecca home Korean machinery industry, main home for many well-known Korean firms such as Samsung, LG, Doosan, etc. It is a planned city that needs Korean industrialization in the 70s, and current annual finance of Changwon is close to 2.4 trillion won. Since 2010, as administrative integration of Changwon, Masan and Jine has begun city of Changwon has grown as the major city in the region for transportation, culture, industry, and education. The climate of the city is mild with average temperature of approximately 14 degrees Celsius at each average annual precipitation is 1,620 millimeters. Also, it is a marine city where summer rainfall takes up more than 60% of total annual precipitation. It was vision to become the environmental capital in the world by 2022. The teacher of Changwon is managing its operation according to the goals and strategies of Changwon, making public statement to become the environmental capital. Together with the residents, the city is doing its best to establish a sustainable environmental city which provides clean water and air recycling, procedures of energy and resources, providing tribal habitats full of biodiversity. To build a sustainable city, City of Changwon has set up priorities to push a priority of different projects such as usage of renewable and recycled energies, using non-powered bicycles as the transportation. The city has implemented various renewable energy supply businesses, including supplying methane gas collected from the terminal disposal plant, observed as the fuel for CNG city buses, creating steam supplies to factories acquired from the waste of installation plant generation electricity, using methane gas in landfill, using food waste as components of feedstock. Also, we have set various strategies utilization of renewable energy. It is supporting research on solar power energy generation. The cooperation from Korea Electro-Technology Research Institute, Green Energy Center, and nearby colleges. The city is currently supporting 10,000 green photovoltaic loop project to revitalize the installation of photovoltaic system for the private housing in order to increase the number of private energy service companies for solar projects. The city made numerous agreements with related parties when it is generating electricity as much as 6,000 megawatt-hour yearly from, which tax revenue is includes from equipment rentals, and the city utilized the fund as social contributions. Moreover, by implementing energy efficient projects for public facilities, it has built the photovoltaic system in 111 locations in the city, including social welfare facilities, local government offices. Changwon also built 600 kilowatt marine solar tower, used to not only for South Singing, but also for education center of renewable energy. By using such a strategy on renewable energy, City of Changwon is creating opportunity for private generation from private companies and reduction of the carbon emission in the city. At the same time, thereby providing a countermeasure for creating sustainable city in the post-COVID era of the peak oil, and maximizing the social effects, such as creating jobs and prevent green leasing. City of Changwon is trying to promote resource recycling, waste reduction, and the green economy to more people by making an agreement on energy conversion from waste resource project with Gangnam Energy Company Limited, a private company doing various types of business related to renewable energy, such as supporting group energy supplies for the city gas and LPG, construction and operation of the CNG stations, etc. As one of the city's effort, our west example is installation of piping facilities by Gangnam Energy to supply 46 tons of steam. Our two factories where 300 tons of domestic waste are incinerated daily. City of Changwon is Korea's first planned city in the 70s, where industrial complex and residential areas are separated. There is a large machinery industrial complex inside the city. Since the installation plant is located in the industrial complex and the waste is supplied through the piping facilities, Infield for 7 large companies located nearby the incineration plant. Companies that receive the waste through the supply saved up to 8.7 million won yearly, and the city of Changwon gained operational profit from 3.1 billion won yearly from leasing on the facility. Also, he did great contributive to community by reducing the greenhouse gas increase in production and job creation. In addition, Gangnam Energy has contracted big size biogas purification facilities and implemented the system. It supplies medicine through the pickups on nearby CNG stations as the fuel for CNG bus. Amount of supply was used to supply 360 buses that used nearby CNG stations, generating effects on production inducement that it was 24.8 billion won. The biogas purification facilities created the effect of replacing fuels of 50,345 buses yearly. Annual operational profits of 100 million won. Permanent leasing annual reduction of the greenhouse gas by 4,320 tons. Effect on added value inducement of 7.7 billion won and employment of 37 people. Also, Gangnam Energy designed the 1.2 megawatt solar generation project in the free spaces on the rooftops of processing turbine of the sewage plant. Gangnam Energy, the contract that is selected by Changwon's BOT heating projects will require CER and the management through next generation of a CDM project on the condition that the generation facilities will be open to leasing. After making investment agreement of a solar generation project with the city. In addition, Gangnam Energy generates free from sales of electricity and certificate by a renewable portfolio standard. There is a solar generation facility generates approximately 1,600 megawatt-hour of electricity per year, as they reduce 1,200 tons of carbon annually, cremating products inducement effects of paid 0.9 million and about 8.8 jobs every year. In today's presentation, we introduced the Renewable Energy Epicenter project that is designed by the city of Changwon in cooperation with private company called Gangnam Energy. However, their energies to be controlled and effort for the development and expanding renewable sources of energies are necessary. Development of technology and diversification for each energy resource should be promoted in the terms of fuel cell. Establishment of eco-industrial complex, construction of geothermal heat and wind power generation facilities, revitalizing urban green industries through formation of enterprise, academic, and industrial clusters. Also, administrative and financial support is needed for development of various financial programs to attract more industrial capital in the field of renewable. City of Changwon will continue to push the green economy to build a sustainable city. Thank you. 감사합니다.
So thank you. Another astonishingly comprehensive picture of all the different things that one can pull together to create the environmental capital. Karoline, can I ask you to top that and to tell us how Copenhagen's going about this agenda?
Thank you very much. I'm very excited to be able to speak here today on green growth. First of all, I should send regards from my mayor. He was supposed to be here to do some introductory remarks, but there was a press conference and a family photo of mayors, so that's difficult to skip. But I know that he would have said that green growth is very important for him, and he's insisting in our city administration that we find smart solutions to our very complex problems. To begin with, I would like to just present the Copenhagen model, we call it, but I guess a lot of these terms are very familiar to a lot of you. But we insist on focusing on the interdependency between quality of life, economic growth, and sustainability. Quality of life, because we very much like for our citizens to be able to live in the city all of their lives, even though they have small children or get old. Economic growth, because we think that's a precondition for having a livable city. And last of all, sustainability, because we think that sustainable urban development is the only way forward. And what has this resulted until now? We've got a lot of different international recognition for this. We are very happy about that. You can see the terms green, smart, and livable. But what does that leave us with? Should we just say thank you and do nothing more? No. Our problems or challenges, and Jeremy, as you said, this is a forum also not just for saying what we're good at, but also where perhaps our challenges are. So I hope you'll take it in the right spirit. We have rather moderate economic growth at the moment in Copenhagen when we compare ourselves to other metropolitan regions that we normally think we should be in competition with on international investments and talents. So that worries us, of course. The other challenge we got is that Copenhagen is growing, our population is growing. That's of course a good thing, but it puts a great stress to our investments. We have to do a lot of development, and we want to do this in a sustainable way. We have grown 33% in 2025 for 20 years. So what do we do? This is perhaps not new to a lot of you either, but the political ambitions in Copenhagen is very important, a very important driver to what we have been doing the last 10 years, and also what we are doing at the moment on green growth. Smart and green investments, a strong Cleantech cluster, which we are so fortunate to have in Copenhagen, and then healthy city competition. So that's why we're here and very active in C40. To begin with the political focus and the political high ambitions, we have a climate plan where we would like to be CO2 neutral in 2025. That's rather ambitious, and it requires a lot of investments. At the same time, we just adopted the climate adaptation plan, where I think it's about 1.4 billion euros that we are supposed to invest if we should succeed with that. So a lot of investments are required. And we tried just to show some of this on the slide here, that we invest some in Copenhagen, the city of Copenhagen. We have a lot of companies that are partly owned or fully owned by the city, and we of course implement our strategy in their work, so their investments count as well. And then we have the investments from the private sector as well. Then I just want to touch a bit on the Copenhagen Cleantech cluster, which is something that we've discussed, the cluster thinking in the Green Growth Network as well, which Copenhagen is leading. And we think it's very important for us to get the right solutions, that we include the private sectors in developing the solutions. So our cluster is taking initiative to strategic partnerships, smart solutions, and have international ambitions. When we were going here, they asked me, please let them know that we are so much like to cooperate with all the other clusters around the world. In May, 21st of May, our Cleantech cluster is inviting 14 other clusters from around the world to a conference, exchanging views on how can they help cities reach their goals on climate change. So if anyone wants to join, please let me know. Then I just want to touch a bit on the work that we've been doing in the Green Growth Network. We've had two meetings, one in 2012 and one in 2013, and we're looking forward to continuing the work. We've been focusing on measurements. It's very important for us to be able to argue in the political discussions that it pays actually to do investments in a smart and green way. So that's the second point that the discussions have been focusing on. How can we get the political attention on these issues? And lastly, how can we cooperate with businesses? We've made this catalog of Copenhagen solutions where we try to focus on the total social costs, not just on the economic or the environmental or social, but all of them. And when we visit different cities, we show them our solutions, but we need someone to pick up from there and go a step further and actually transfer the solution to the given city. And that's what our Cleantech cluster would like to do for us. So we're very happy about the work they're doing. What I was just talking about, the total socioeconomic cost, I think a lot of the other participants focused on this as well. Our example of bikes, we have we both include the reduced noise and air pollution emissions in making, it's called accountancy for bikes or something like that. And we also actually account for the reduction in healthcare costs by biking. So for every kilometer you bike, you actually save, I think the price went out of the slide, but it's 0.77 euros per kilometer you bike. That's what you save in healthcare costs. So remember that. I bike every day to work, and it's actually not any of these arguments for me. That's the last one, the reduced journey time and congestion. I would never take the car or the bus. That would take me too far to go to City Hall, So I take my bike when it rains and when it snows, just because I'm getting there faster. And to end, I can see I'm really speeding up. I just wanted to conclude by saying that Copenhagen, as lead of the Green Growth Network, would very much invite other cities. We've had 2 sessions already, but the coming one here in 2014, we're looking very much forward to having more participants and working a bit further on these discussions as well. So thank you.
I'm going to actually take the privilege of being the moderator and ask a question to kick us off. And it's a very simple one. I mean, we all know that at the end of the day, the key to getting these opportunities around green growth to scale is to be able to make the business case, right? And I would just like to hear from each of the speakers in turn, and maybe Josh, start with you. What's your experience about the key things? What's the key learnings you've had in terms of making the business case for these kind of initiatives and investments?
I think, in Portland, our experience has told us that it's really to be as simple as we can be, so that we can make it relevant to the everyday life of our citizen. We here can talk at high levels and talk about GDP and things like that, but in the everyday life of our citizen, that's, they may have a minute or 2 a day to think about something outside of their work, their family, and what they're going to have for dinner. So really being able to take that 1 minute that they can think about this and really distill it down to the most important point, which is, how is this going to affect me? Ask me next year. We're still working on that. But I think, what Karoline said is right. Something as basic as cycling, we pale in comparison to what Copenhagen has done, although in the United States we're really pushing the envelope in our cycling industry. But when you ask any individual cyclist why they're actually cycling, it becomes as simple as, because I can get somewhere faster. And we don't even have to get to the business case, because they're already doing it because it makes sense for their daily life. When we're able then to layer that by saying, and look at what you're saving in healthcare costs, and in contributing into the local economy by creating all of the bike manufacturers that are now locating in Portland, then, I mean, they're sold forever.
Yeah. The opportunity we get with implementing this is, the climate change is inevitable, but the climate change is, if inevitable, we have to apply the mitigation and the adaptation program. So our countries already developed this strategy, Japan climate resilient green economy is already, we implement from this as a urban component, and so we get opportunity to implement the projects, which is especially the adaptation part is already implemented in Addis.
Can you hear me? Yeah. Well, we have the example of the bikes. We also have the district heating, which is very good example. But an example which perhaps I would put forward here is our inner harbor, which you are able to take a swim in. I've done it several times this August when it was very hot during lunchtime. But the efforts that we put into making that clean to swim is in. If you're going to see on the benefits, you can of course see a lot of numbers, but it's more the social aspects. We have regenerated a whole area within the harbor because now it's a more livable area to be in. There are a lot of green areas where you can actually sunbathe while you're bathing as well. So the thing that we actually lifted a part of the city while we do something green as well. So the more social cost and the cultural development of the city, I think that's very important as well. And it's very difficult to put a number on that. And it's very politically a good sign or good symbol that you're able to take a swim in your own harbor.
Just to give a short comment. Actually, you already saw our presentation. Maybe there are several, renewable energy facilities. So that is one of the best practice in our city, as well as, as you know, some of you already know, our city operating some public bicycle system. So that also made a quite, big green growth economic effect. So those facilities, we just put a lot of investment in those facilities, which is, public bicycle system in our city. And also it can have a lot of economic benefits as well. So mostly in Korean city, recently they adapted some public bicycle system following as our city. But as you know, in Korean society, it's almost, car-driven city. Like, mostly the way of the people also, they are trying to use a car rather just walking or bicycle. But our city tried to change it, the thinking of the way and the people's, citizens' life in our city. So we're trying to adapt those, bicycle system in our city, and the people, the citizens also changing their ways to approach it for the public transportation. Thank you.
Let me just ask one other. Josh, you mentioned 8,000 possible jobs associated with electric vehicles. And electric vehicles were a huge story a year or two ago, and now they've kind of tapered a little bit, notwithstanding Tesla. I'm sure in Copenhagen you've got an electric vehicle. What do the economics look like? Do they really work? Give us a little bit of flavor, because that's a big yes. You can't half do electric vehicles, it seems to be. You've either got to go for it or not. And I think it's one of these things that only cities can actually lead on that agenda, notwithstanding the bike lane point. So and there is a trade-off in that territory as well. So I'd be keen to tease that out for 2 or 3 minutes if we can.
Yeah, I know in Portland's case, we've gone like that as well, and largely it's just because of the economy, because I think rightly so, Jeremy, you point out that really only cities can create that kind of infrastructure, and we don't, at least in the United States, have a whole lot of federal help on creating that infrastructure. But we know that moving into electric vehicles really is the way of the future for automobile transit. And so we continue with the resources that we have to build the infrastructure and build the electric highways, as we're calling them. And it's now possible to go from Seattle all the way down to Los Angeles in an electric vehicle. It's a little iffy, but it's getting better and better. And so as a regional system on the West Coast, we're working with partners in other cities to really make sure that you're able to mobilize, because it's not going to do anyone a whole lot of good if you buy an electric car and can only use it within your city. You're going to have to be able to go elsewhere. So first creating the policies, which we've done, and now figuring out how we actually fund building that infrastructure and continue to fund building that infrastructure is a challenge, but one that we see as something that we have to keep doing, not something that we can afford to say, well, we'll figure it out later.
Yeah, but I mean, we have a goal in the city itself that we should only have electrical vehicles from 2020, I think. So that's what we can do ourselves. but there's been a big political debate on how much you want to prioritize it compared to, I think it's Oslo who made it possible for electric cars to drive in the bus lanes. And we just had a big political debate about that, and it didn't go through. So there are definitely limits to how far even Copenhagen politicians would go to drive that agenda. So and our system provider also collapsed, and we have some difficulties on that issue actually.
Yeah, and also city of Changwon is a kind of chair city of the Eco-Mobility Alliance. So we launched that one in 2011. So in Korea, our city designated as the EV leading city. So in our city itself, we have GM Korea and the Electro Technology Institute in our city. So we have some technology from them, and also our city also have some infrastructure to build up those, the EV system, EV electrical vehicle in our city. And then for the public, for the private sector also, we provide some incentives to, to purchase those electric vehicles for the public use. So that is a kind of, top leading city in Korean society.
Ladies and gentlemen, the breakout session is now concluded. Please be sure to leave your headsets behind, as there will be headsets available in each room. The plenary session, Climate Proofing the World's Megacities, will begin at 15:25 in ballroom number 1. Thank you.